They descended like gods with halos of plasma and hulls that glimmered against the upper stratosphere. The skies of Earth, for the first time in centuries, burned with light, not born of war, but of something, different. Not missiles, not comets. Ships, alien ships. We didn't scramble our jets. Not immediately. There was no declaration of war. No demands, no ultimatums, just silence. Cities across the globe froze in unified awe. People gathered in parks and on rooftops with their phones held high, live streaming what looked like first contact, or maybe, depending on your angle, a divine intervention. But we weren't dying. Not yet. Not in the way they thought. The first transmission came with clarity and calm, broadcast into every major frequency band simultaneously in every language known to Earth. Humans of Earth, we come bearing assistance. We are the Vari. We detected your decline. Your biosphere decays. Your weapons multiply. Your civilization teeters. We will guide you. We will save you. The words were polite, warm, even. The tone was clinical, pitying. That, more than anything, pissed me off, because I was there when they landed, right in Geneva. My name is Dr. Kira Hammond, synapse psychologist. I'd published 3 papers before the age of 30 and consulted 4 governments on how to prepare for first contact scenarios. None of them predicted this. They didn't want diplomacy. They didn't want to understand us. They came with a diagnosis and a cure we never asked for. I watched the lead Vari step from the ramp of their vessel like a waddling balloon in a cloak made of reactive fibers that shimmered depending on the light. Her their designation meant little with them. Their species wasn't gendered. It was bloated with confidence. Chubby, tall, with 4 arms and a pearlescent sheen to their semi-translucent skin. Think jellyfish with a doctorate. Dr. Hammond, it said, without speaking. Its voice came from inside my skull. You are a cultural authority. I nodded slowly, unsure if I should be honored or insulted. We have determined your species requires intervention. Your climate destabilizes. Your technologies threaten extinction. Your populations grow without direction. Our directive requires we interfere for your benefit. I blinked. We didn't ask for that. It tilted its head, confused. Your inability to recognize danger is expected. And that's when I realized what was really going on. They didn't see us as equals, not even as infants. They saw us like we were some primitive species dragging ourselves into self-made extinction. In truth, things weren't perfect on Earth, but we weren't dying. Not like they thought, not like we used to. Over the next few days, they distributed aid packages, towers that would neutralize our nuclear weapons, nanite clouds to purify our air, orbiting thermal regulators to cool the polar melt without permission. Governments tried to protest, tried to say, we had it under control. The Vari dismissed them the way you'd dismissed a toddler, saying they could tie their own shoes. We know better, they said. You're welcome. Except, humans don't take well to being told we're broken, especially not by someone who hasn't lived what we've lived. Especially not by aliens who never burned half their own forests to build cities, who never nearly destroyed themselves twice, and then clawed their way back with blood, sweat, and steel. I wasn't the only one who noticed. In New Delhi, a student hacked one of their towers and reprogrammed it to blast Bollywood music across their internal network. In Tokyo, a group of engineers reverse-engineered their purification nanites and turned them into air-drawn energy harvesters, more efficient than anything we'd ever made. The aliens were stunned, said we weren't supposed to be capable of understanding their tech. Not this fast. In Lagos, a professor published a paper proving that the various climate models were built on flawed assumptions. Earth wasn't dying, it was adapting, and the message started spreading. They didn't save us. They underestimated us. One evening, I sat across from the same Vari diplomat who now called himself Coordinator, Telv, sipping jasmine tea while he analyzed the failure of their intervention protocols. You are, ... more reactive than expected, he said. You resist optimization. Because we're not machines, I answered. Efficiency is survival. I shook my head. Survival is messier than that. It's about will, grit, pain, triumph. You can't optimize those. You can't control them. Telv pulsed slightly. That was how they frowned. We were taught your kind would embrace help. We would, if it was help. This wasn't help. This was control with better PR. A long silence passed between us. Finally, Telv said something that surprised me. We assumed your growth was reckless. We did not consider it might be deliberate. He wasn't admitting they were wrong, but he wasn't saying they were right either. Progress. Then came the spark. A group of miners in Bolivia discovered one of the Vari had been quietly draining rare earth minerals for long-term optimization, without consent, without treaties, without a word. Protests flared. Riots. A Vari drone station was burned to the ground by a group of farmers in Montana who'd watched their crops die due to unintended interactions between their atmospheric regulators and local pollinators. Humanity didn't unite often, but when it did, the universe learned not to get in the way. The climax wasn't a war, not yet, but the world sent a message. Every capital city, every digital billboard, every satellite that could point a transmission out to space. In perfect synchrony, Earth broadcast one sentence. We didn't ask to be saved. And beneath it, a compilation of humans laughing, dancing, fighting, building, inventing, arguing, loving, living, unfiltered, raw, glorious. The Vari didn't leave, not yet, but they stopped interfering because they saw something they hadn't expected. That maybe, just maybe, we weren't broken. We were just ... human, and that was enough. The skies had never been clearer. For the first time in weeks, Earth wasn't filled with the buzz of orbital shuttles or the steady hum of alien drones scanning cities. The Varani had pulled back, retreated to their majestic skyships in low orbit, watching, waiting. Their relief doctrine was stalled, suspended after the display in Johannesburg. They said they needed to reassess humanity's response thresholds. Truth was, they were scared. I sat in the ruins of an old cafe in Berlin, sipping bitter coffee made from salvaged beans. The air still carried that post-ash temps, a mix of ozone and singed concrete. But the city wasn't silent anymore. Small groups of humans moved in the open, not scavengers, coordinators, builders, fighters, survivors. The resistance hadn't just woken up, it had been reborn. You look like hell, came a voice behind me. I didn't flinch. Nice to see you too, Kira. She dropped into the seat across from me, rifle slung lazily over one shoulder, the same black streak smeared beneath her eyes like war paint. She'd always been chaos wrapped in purpose. We've been tracking the satellite feeds, she said, sliding a battered datapad across the table. You should see this. I leaned in. The screen flickered and then displayed live telemetry. Dozens of Varani ships, clustering just outside orbit. More than before. Not an invasion force, but a formation. A blockade. They're sealing Earth off, I muttered. They say it's for our own good. Quarantine against psychological instability caused by exposure to traumatic war zones. Kira spat on the floor, as if we're the ones breaking. I looked up. They're afraid of something, not just our defiance. They're scared of what will become. Kira nodded. That Johannesburg stunt changed the narrative. Humans stood in front of a godlike force and didn't blink. That breaks their entire model of sentient development. It's not supposed to happen. They still think we're unstable primitives, I said, but now we're unstable primitives, with strategy. She smirked, and memes. A moment passed between us, the weight of it all settling like dust. Then came the transmission, Every screen across Earth flickered. Holograms burst to life in town centers, in ruined subways, even in the hollowed halls of burned-out UN command bunkers. The same face appeared Ambassador Thessel Varani, high diplomat. He looked off, not his usual polished self. There was a tightness around his eyes, stress or fear. To the people of Earth, he began, voice calm but taut, it is with deep sorrow that we must inform you. The Council has enacted Protocol 88. All further assistance operations have been suspended. You will remain within your planetary boundary until deemed cognitively and ethically mature enough to interact with the wider galactic society. There it was. The cord had been cut. He continued, this is not exile. This is protection. We believe this isolation will help you stabilize. The message ended. No farewell, just a blank signal. The cafe was silent again. Did he just ground the entire species? Kira asked. I nodded. Like misbehaving kids, and they think that'll work. Kira stood, pacing. They're not used to someone refusing help. Every species they saved before you slaves to gratitude, bent over backward to appease them. But we ask questions. We fight back. We meme their advisors into oblivion, and they're terrified of what happens when we stop playing along. That night, I returned to the bunker, an old NATO site reactivated by resistance tech crews. The walls were lined with re-engineered, alien tech, stuff we'd scavenged from benevolent drops and repurposed. We didn't throw their gifts away, we made them ours. Gok Reynolds met me in the lab. They were trying to track your brainwave activity, he said, pointing at a helmet I'd worn during a captured interrogation drone simulation. Not just yours, mine too. Kira's. They've been logging our neural responses to stress, conflict, even sarcasm. Why sarcasm? He raised an eyebrow. Because they don't get it, at all. Their whole society's built on transparency and logic, humor, irony. It short circuits their consensus models. I grinned. You're saying we're weaponizing confusion. Exactly. Our unpredictability is the threat. They don't understand USO. They fear us. That night, we sent a message. A global stream, patched through hijacked satellites and scattered towers. It featured no military threats, no speeches, just raw footage of human life, families rebuilding rubble homes, kids kicking a can through ash-covered streets, an elderly man planting a flag in the middle of a cratered city square. Then came the audio, Kira's voice, over a piano melody, simple, haunting. We are not afraid. We are not broken. And we are not yours to fix. The message ended with 4 words burned across the feed. We are not weak. The Galactic Council lost its mind. 3 days later, a cloaked ship entered the solar system without authorization. It wasn't Verani. It wasn't even sanctioned. It was a different species entirely. The Drell, smugglers, hackers, revolutionaries. They contacted us directly. Your performance, their emissary said in a raspy voice, has inspired more than fear. It has inspired interest. The galaxy watches. You are not alone. And with that, the floodgates cracked. One by one, voices from the dark corners of the galaxy whispered our name. You. Not the broken, not the helpless, the defiant. We became a symbol, a wild card. The Varani's grip weakened not from war but from exposure. Their pristine image of benevolent control shattered under the weight of our refusal. They had come to save us, and they ended up showing the galaxy how dangerous we could be, how free minds behave. We never fired the first shot. We didn't need to. The clouds over, Nevada split in a spiral unnaturally symmetrical. What started as a minor atmospheric anomaly quickly turned into a full-blown vortex, visible from satellite arrays around the globe. The UN monitoring stations registered energy fluctuations at levels previously theorized only in white dwarf star collapses. This wasn't nature, it was them again. All communication links jammed for 28 seconds. Not just radio, not just military, every frequency. Earth fell into a momentary silence. Then a sound, not heard, but felt in the spine, the teeth, the bones. A low harmonic thrum that seemed to rearrange something inside every listener. People dropped their phones. Some dropped to their knees. It was as if Earth itself was humming with tension, and from the spiral, a shape emerged. It wasn't a ship, not really. Not in the way humans defined ships. No hull, no engines, no hard surfaces. It was light in structure, and a motionsome fusion of quantum plasma and spatial engineering beyond comprehension. It pulsed in and out of our dimension like a heartbeat. The Archelons had returned, and they had brought something down on the surface, in a bunker carved deep into the Sierra Nevada. Colonel Monroe watched the anomaly on 12 separate displays. Sweat poured down his temple, even in the climate-controlled room. Project Redline is still on ice, he asked quietly. Still dormant, sir, his assistant replied. We haven't cracked their shielding tech. Any retaliation would bounce off. Monroe didn't speak. He just stared at the anomaly. In orbit, the ISS was evacuated days earlier, but someone stayed behind. Dr. Jun Park, the physicist who had warned this day would come again. She floated weightless, watching through reinforced shielding. As the alien structure loomed like a god's eye, her heartbeat synced with its pulses, not metaphorically, literally. She knew what they were doing, what they were trying. I know you think you're saving us, she whispered, but we are not your pets. Back on Earth, millions tuned in, as the Archelons broadcast once again. Their message was clearer, now refined, after months of studying Earth's languages and culture. The voice was musical, too perfect, genderless, but soothing. It addressed every human by name. In their own language, we offered guidance. We offered protection. You refused. The screens flashed to images of starving children, war, pollution, death. This is your world. This is your result. A pause. We have revised our offer. And then came the bombshell. A map of the Earth overlain with zones, red, yellow, green. Humans who accept integration will be transferred to sanctuary habitats, disease-free, hunger-free, war-free, evolution guaranteed. That word transferred wasn't defined, but it carried a weight that sent shivers through every translator. Those who refused, no threats were made, but the map showed the green zones shrinking. Earth's leaders went into crisis mode. Protests erupted from Delhi to Detroit. Some begged to join. Others burned the screens. In Berlin, 1,000 people marched with signs, reading "We Choose Chaos." In Lagos, hackers launched an AI virus called Pan. In Washington, the president's face looked grayer than ever. Are we sure it's not a bluff? He asked his science advisor. The reply came hollow. Sir, they moved a moon. No, it's not a bluff. But Earth had changed since the first visit. This wasn't the same fractured species they had scanned months ago. Something had awakened. Unity was fragile, but real, in South Africa. A think tank unveiled the Mirror Project, a frequency disruptor that could mimic Archelonic signal harmonics. It wouldn't break their shields, but it might confuse their targeting. In Japan, quantum engineers unveiled Shinome, a weaponized satellite concept that didn't fire weapons, it inverted probability outcomes. It was theoretical insanity, but the models worked. In Iceland, underground servers that had been silent for a decade reactivated. A rogue AI collective known only as the Archive began decrypting Archelonic command protocols. Meanwhile, in the slums of Rio, a kid named Marcos built something nobody expected, using scraps, code leaked from a defunct Chinese lab, and pieces of alien tech smuggled from Siberia. He built a translator loopback. When activated, it didn't just hear the ARCH elons, it answered them, not with words, but with intent. with defiance. The response sent back through the signal caused the alien ship to pause. For the first time, it hesitated, not because of a threat, not because of a weapon, but because of will. Somewhere in orbit, Dr. Park's pulse separated from the ship's rhythm. She smiled. "We don't need saving," she whispered into the void, and for the first time since contact, the alien ship responded directly, not to Earth, not to governments, but to her. "Then what do you need?" She closed her eyes and said the words that would ripple across galaxies. "To be left alone." The ship shimmered, folded space, and vanished. But it wasn't retreat. It wasn't surrender. It was consideration. They had never expected the child species to refuse paradise. The Archelons vanished. No demands, no gifts, no threats, just silence. In the days that followed, the world buzzed with confusion. No attack came, no salvation either, just the same old Earth, dirty, loud, chaotic, beautiful, but now with a question hanging in the air. If not them, then who? If not salvation, then what? And the answer was simple: US. They didn't just watch us anymore. They studied us, cataloged our every move, every rise and stumble, every war and act of love. Like we were data points in a sprawling galactic case study. The Ascendancy's luminous probes floated silently above Earth's orbit, cloaked from radar, pulsing with curiosity and bureaucratic caution. To them, we were the anomaly, the species that refused to break under pressure, refused to stay docile. Every scenario they'd run, every variable accounted for, said we should have collapsed long ago. And yet, we hadn't. In fact, the more they tried to save us, the stronger we became. Not through their help, but through our rejection of it. I remember when the first Ascendancy healing beacon was deployed in Dhaka. It was meant to instantly cleanse polluted air and purify water for hundreds of miles. Noble, efficient, futuristic. The problem? It also wiped out entire ecosystems, bugs, birds, microbes, all gone in one burst of radiant sterilization. Crops failed weeks later. People got sick not from pathogens, but from their absence. No immunity left to train. No dirt left to build. Resilience. Nature was not a system that could be debugged like code. They had treated the Earth like an operating system with a virus, but it was alive. It evolved with us. That was when protests stopped being about presence and started being about resistance. The voice of the world wasn't spoken in one tongue, but 1,000. Each city rose in its own way. In Buenos Aires, a group of human hackers cracked into the Ascendancy's satellite protocols and broadcasted a message. Across every screen on Earth, we were not born to be tended like cattle. We are not sick. We are wild. We are enough. That transmission lit fires from Seoul to Seattle. It wasn't long before retaliation came, draped in the usual velvet words. They didn't call it punishment. They called it adjustment. They didn't call it containment. They called it quarantine. Shut off our atmosphere from the stars, blocked signals, cut power to major grids through ionospheric manipulation. Even the clouds obeyed their will, rain schedules, programmed to ruin crop rotations. I was in Nairobi when the sky turned red, not from pollution or sunset, but from their sky curtain, a pulsating net of refracted light that split the spectrum. Above our atmosphere, it looked beautiful. It felt like suffocation. And then came the ambassadors. Not soldiers, not machines, just envoys of pity. They descended in ships shaped like petals and pearls, so gentle, so calming, their faces always serene, always concerned. I sat in on one of their summits. "You are burning yourselves," said the envoy named Cerulean, her voice like water sliding over glass. "We only wish to stabilize your ecosystem. Your species is ... prone to emotional volatility." A Pakistani delegate stood. "You mean we're not obedient?" Cerulean did not flinch. "You resist protocols designed for your own sustainability. We have our own, the delegate growled. It's called struggle, and it's how we got here. Cerulean tilted her head, as if trying to comprehend a paradox in physics. Pain is not a virtue. Then you've never earned anything. That exchange went viral, despite their jamming attempts. Memes flooded the net. Pain.exe equals humanity. 1.0. If you're here to save us from ourselves, bring a helmet. Who saves the saviors? That last one stuck, because that's when we started looking at them. If they were so advanced, so perfect, why did they hover in orbit like guilt-ridden gods? Why did they never leave their clean white walls of sterilized ships? What were they hiding? We dug through every fragment of data, every intercepted signal, and then we found it. They weren't just trying to save us. They were trying to replace us. The Ascendancy wasn't an empire. It was a hospice. Every species they uplifted was sterilized, cloned, rewritten genetically to conform to long-term environmental harmony. Civilization at the cost of identity. Peace at the cost of chaos. They'd turned every planet they visited into a museum. Not one original culture remained. Humanity was their last chance to prove that free will was a bug, not a feature. And we kept refusing to crash, so they decided to push. And Earth pushed back harder. The resistance, as it had earned the capital R, now wasn't led by nations. It was led by people. Young, old, armed, and unarmed. Engineers in the Himalayas built gravity jammers using Ascendancy parts salvaged from fallen drones. Farmers in rural Kenya grew crops beneath electromagnetic shields, powered by car batteries and stolen coils. In Detroit, a mechanic named Mail built something they hadn't expected, a translator that turned Ascendancy code into music. It made their language singable, and the world began singing loudly. They had hoped to sterilize our chaos. Instead, we infected their silence. I'll never forget the night we jammed their own orbiting beacons with the broadcast of one child's voice from Lagos. Stop trying to fix us. We're not broken. It echoed across the stars. No weapon, just words. But the next morning, 3 of their ships left orbit, and 2 more came back the day after, this time, with no envoys, only observers. Unarmed. Speechless, they watched as humans rebuilt Mumbai using drones modified by teenagers. Watched children in Seoul learning to code firewalls that blocked Ascendancy mental calibration attempts. They watched us become immune to their interventions, not biologically, but ideologically. They weren't scared of our anger, they were scared of our refusal, because where other species saw gods, humans saw equals, and then eventually liars, Cyrelune, came to me again, uninvited, on the plains outside Marrakesh. She no longer wore her robes, just a simple cloak. You have undone centuries of policy, she said softly. Do you truly believe pain is necessary for growth? No, I said. I believe pain is growth, and you can't fake growth. She didn't respond. The silence between us stretched. 1,000 stars blinked above, and somewhere beyond them, other planets waited silenced, each saved. Will you go to them too? I asked. We no longer know what to say, she whispered. I looked at her then, not as a superior, not even as an enemy, just as someone afraid of entropy. And we humans we were. Entropy. Not because we destroyed, but because we changed, always, relentlessly, no matter how much they tried to preserve us. They came not with warships, but with wonders. Vessels shimmering like captured auroras descended gently through Earth's atmosphere, as if the stars themselves had chosen to bless us. No weapons were aimed, no threats were spoken, only the promise of peace, wrapped in technologies we could scarcely comprehend. The media called it first contact. The aliens called themselves the Alarian, ancient race spanning hundreds of systems, known for their humanitarian missions across the spiral arms of the galaxy. They didn't come demanding surrender or tribute. Instead, They came bearing gifts. And that was the first red flag. Within weeks, the Alari had distributed benevolence kits across Earth, medpods that erased disease at a cellular level, synth food generators that produced perfect, balanced nutrition, atmospheric filters to cleanse pollution, neurobands designed to elevate cognitive potential in children. To most, it seemed a miracle. Poverty rates plummeted. Life expectancies surged. Conflict zones went eerily silent as drones monitored global violence and gently intervened. Humanity's greatest problems, disease, hunger, war, began vanishing. But something else vanished. Choice, autonomy, spirit. You see, we never asked for help, and we definitely didn't ask to be made into pets. At first, the changes were subtle. Global policies began being advised by Alari delegates. Elections were postponed until emotional biases could be corrected. Parents were encouraged to let the Alari optimize their children's futures with neural implants and behavior modification programs. Disruptive thinkers began quietly disappearing from universities and think tanks, all under the banner of saving humanity from itself. Then came the turning point. Evelyn March, a third-grade teacher from Wisconsin, stood in front of a government-distributed educational holoboard and asked a simple question. If they came to help us, why are we not allowed to say no? That clip went viral in less than 30 minutes. In 12 hours, it was scrubbed from every official network by Alari eyes. But humans aren't so easily silenced. Within days, underground networks lit up with unrest. Hackers, former soldiers, rogue scientists, people who had once stood on opposite ends of human conflict, began working together, not to fight the Alari, but to remind humanity who we were. We called ourselves the REJECTORS. Our first strike was informational. A wave of deep scans revealed hidden subroutines in the neurobands placed on children. The optimizations weren't just boosting learning, they were rewriting identity, implanting docility, eroding curiosity, training obedience at the neural route. The Alari called it cognitive harmonization. We called it soul murder. Global outrage exploded. Parents ripped the bands from their children. Protests lit up across the continents. But the Alari were ready. They activated enforcement drones and broadcast a message to every screen on Earth. We do this to protect you from yourselves. That's when humanity did what it does best: fight back. The rebellion wasn't sleek or polished. It was ragged, improvised, made from old rifles, modified smartphones, black market code, and sheer rage. But it had something the Alari had never faced: defiant creativity. We hijacked their drones, turned their benevolence bots into subversive graffiti artists, hacked their AI assistants to blast punk rock and anti-Alari manifestos. One kid in Tokyo programmed his fridge to scream, "Get off our planet," every time an Alari passed by his window. Cities fell, then rose again, this time with barricades. Skyscrapers glowed with human resistance symbols. The Alari tried to isolate us, but found themselves facing a species that had grown up under fire, political, cultural, literal, and we hadn't just survived. We'd evolved because of it. The final straw was the gene directive, a broadcast sent to all humans. Every embryo from that moment onward would be screened and corrected for aggression, independence, and tribal tendencies. No more rebels, no more dreamers, no more danger, no more humans. The world stopped. And then we made our choice. We wouldn't go quietly into utopia in the frozen Arctic. An old submarine base activated a dormant weapon, Project Sisyphus, a failsafe from the Cold War, designed to fry low-orbit electronics with a single surge of EMP energy. Half the Alari fleet blinked out of existence, not from violence, just from being shut off. Earth's skies lit up with falling starships. The rest tried to retreat, but found their warp relays jammed. Someone, somewhere, had figured out how to lock the doors on their own galaxy. For the first time, The Alari experienced fear. We didn't hunt them. We didn't retaliate. We simply stood there, in the ashes of their gift-trapped prison, and said, "You wanted to save us, but we were never yours to save." The Alari left, not in defeat, but in humiliation. Their reports to the Galactic Concord marked Earth as non-compliant, emotionally unstable, unfit for assimilation. They thought it was an insult. We printed it on t-shirts. Years later, a group of interstellar archaeologists would review the Earth incident and ask, why didn't they just accept perfection? A human janitor cleaning the station at the time looked up and muttered, "Perfection is just another word for a cage." The footage went viral across 3 systems. You see, the Alari never understood one thing. We're not perfect. We're not peaceful. We're not predictable, but we are ourselves, and we like it that way. So if you're flying by Earth, and you're thinking about helping, just ask one question first. Help from what? Because the answer you get might not be what you expect. And the next thing you know, your ship's coming back with graffiti on the hull, and a playlist of Earth's angriest rock bands echoing through your comms. That's how we say no thanks. With a smile, with fire, with soul, and with the unmistakable defiant spirit of a species that didn't need saving.